Welcome to Inspiration Station, where we like to inspire, teach business ideas, strategies, motivate you to be an entrepreneur. I know there's really not much, there's no school where it teaches you how to be a business owner. It takes real life experience and some risk taking. And also, so this is the theory or the idea behind the show is to educate you to talk about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And today we have Barry Stern here, and I believe he's an excellent entrepreneur. He's been an entrepreneur most of his life, or all of his life.
I'd be careful with the excellent.
Well, if you lasted, or if you did it your whole
Longevity.
life, you've done it. You've done a good. I'm sure you're really good at it. And so we're here to discuss. What do you do today?
I run a campground. I have a Campground of America franchise.
Mm-hmm.
It's the largest camping organization in the world. There's over 500 of us in the United States. Mine's located in Hartwell, Georgia, on beautiful Lake Hartwell. The name of the campground's Hartwell Lakeside KOA.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically, we have people coming in RVs. We have tents, like Native American teepees.
Mm-hmm.
They can stay in
Wow.
the teepees, and they're absolutely beautiful. The people that created the teepees actually got that idea from the teepees from the movies Dances with Wolves. And these are just fantastic.
Are the teepees all the same size or all different
They're
size?
26 feet. They're huge.
Oh wow.
And they're all we have a circle with a fire pit in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And we rent them out. And this year we're air conditioning them.
Oh wow.
We're going to air condition them. And then we have cabins, regular cabins, like they're portable cabins, but they're just, tongue and groove pine inside. They're solid, they're beautiful. So people come and rent those. And now we have 5 2-bedroom, 2-bath cottages right on the lake.
Wow.
And those were built by the Army Corps of Engineers, but were left to the weather. So we're completely redoing those now. And by April, those will be ready for rent.
Georgia is a hot market for campgrounds and property values. And what drove you to find the location in Georgia? What made you pick that spot?
I was running another campground in Fort Pierce, Florida, and I was actually running one in Pahokee for a while. That one didn't go as well as I wanted to for me. It was a lot of political and whatever.
Political from the city.
The city, and it was kind of difficult. I took it to clean it up. I got it cleaned up. It was successful in that way, but I didn't win the long range contract. However, there was a person in the city, and he was very well known in the city, very active in the community. It was a very poor community, and he was at a conference, I believe in Atlanta or Savannah, and he met one of the city officials from Hartwell, Georgia, and they were telling him, they were looking for someone to run this campground they had. There was a campground that had been developed in the 70s by the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Army Corps turned it over to the state of Georgia. The state of Georgia turned it over to the city of Hartwell. And the city knew they weren't going to operate themselves, but they wanted
Somebody
someone
to
operate long term. So this gentleman that I had known,
And this is from Fort Pierce.
actually the Pahokee,
Area.
he recommended me to the mayor of Hartwell, or somebody in the city. They called me up, and we negotiated a 50-year contract.
Wow.
But what made me the proudest of this, why that gentleman went up, when I took over Pahoke's a very poor community. It's a lot of sharecroppers. It's the largest sugar cane producing area east of the Mississippi. It's huge, but the poverty. And in the campground that I had taken over in a contract had this beautiful fishing pier, and the fishing pier had a sign on it. This is our fishing pier. keep it clean, or you're out of here. That's just what it said. So my first day getting it, I just got another sign. I said, this is your fishing pier. Help us keep it clean. Two different,
Ideas, positive and negative.
yeah, because those people came in, we sold bait. And they were constantly, and we had to take care of the bathrooms there. So we wanted them to know that they were welcome. I mean, it was money from the bait, or whatever. And people from all over came to this campground to fish the pier and all of that. So it was just the attitude that they had versus bringing in,
The negative.
yeah, and then I was able to bring in Campground of America as a franchise in that one too. So
But the property in Georgia, so you have a 50-year lease, so you have to pay monthly for the lease, or how to?
yeah, it's a
Month.
yeah. But
This-
just getting back, not to
Go
the
ahead.
interviewer.
No, go ahead.
No, but
No,
just
me first.
the act of changing that sign was what led my recommendation to the city of Hartwell, saying
wow.
this guy is doing it right. And that's what the city of Hartwell wanted. I don't care if it's Hartwell. I mean, the cities today, they want to make themselves better, and they need people that at least believe in what they're doing. They don't want somebody coming in and doing everything the opposite, and not being involved. So that's basically, that is what led me to Hartwell. I never would have been there in a million years if that guy wasn't remembered that fishing pier, or hadn't been there.
So
and told
little
them.
things.
Little. Just
Little things make a big difference.
everything in life. It's the
Yeah.
little,
like it.
you never start big. It's always a block on top of a block.
It's like a snowball effect.
Snowball. And it's relationships. You don't know who comes in that door as a customer. You don't know. You don't know who the camper is. You just don't know. But so everyone has to be treated,
Very
whether
with
it's the
respect.
car business, any kind of business, a department store, campground, you treat them with respect.
Sorry to interrupt, but how is the campground running? Is it profitable? Are you making a profit, or?
It's taken us, I mean, we've been profitable every year, but there's different levels of what you want to be. We had to put an awful lot of money in. I mean, these cabins that we're doing now, I mean, that investment's probably going to be $500,000 just on that. I mean, there's big investments. The cabins before that we put in, the teepees. I mean, you think those teepees were a lot of money, and we had to put platforms under them and renovate the whole campground. So it was a big investment, but there's a big bank. I'm going to give them a shout out, the Independence Bank of Harp, Montana. They're known as the KOA Bank. So they know the business. It's not like me going into not knocking the local banker, but he doesn't know the camping business. This company, this bank in Independence, they know the industry. They sit at our board meetings. They're at our conventions.
So they're helping funding the project.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like anything else. You still gotta
Get
qualify, and they gotta. What are you doing? Why do you want these cabins? Do the numbers? And at least now I'm in enough years that you can show them how you're going up.
So if it's an income producing idea, they will be interested in funding it. So they just want to see the numbers, the feasibility.
like any bank, Well, how banks are adverse to risk. How are we going to get paid? That's the first thing they want to know.
Yeah. Let's go also backwards to the step before. I know you managed or locally here in Fort Pierce, you had an RV business and you bought and sold RVs.
Yes.
Prior to that, you which is connected to what you're doing today. And prior to that, you owned junkyards in Massachusetts.
Auto recycling centers.
Prior to that, your parents owned a recycling business.
Correct.
And so you were brought into this.
Yeah, I had a lot of, there's no doubt about my experience that if it wasn't for my grandparents, I had, grandparents that emigrated from Russia, and it was very hard. One was a painter, and I think the other, he was actually a farmer, but they both got into that business and they succeeded. And they succeeded a very tough time. And, we grew up, my father ended up establishing a place in Marlborough, Massachusetts, which was really country back then. Mm-hmm. It's on US Route 20, the oldest and longest road in the United States. It goes from Boston to Newport, Oregon.
Oh, wow.
So we had...
so it's like Route 66.
Only it's Route 20.
Route 20.
Route 20. 66 was the movie, but Route 20 is the real thing.
Oh, really?
Well, Route 20 was the first highway in the United States. It went from Boston to New York, and then it went now top of the country, all the way out, right out to Newport, Oregon. Okay. So, and I've driven it. So
it's got to be a beautiful drive because you're
is.
Driving through a lot of beautiful country.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area, very historical area. Mm-hmm. New England is where the, Massachusetts and Virginia.
Was where the United States started.
Where they fought the British. It was those two states that committed the troops. And that's not to take anything away from all the other colonies that came into the group. But Mass and Virginia, I believe, were
the first two.
The first to send troops. So, and just to get back, but I learned, I actually grew up in a junkyard. We lived in a house behind and my father worked 7 days. Mm-hmm. And you were expected to work 7 days.
So when you were little, growing up in a junkyard, why did you follow the same path as your parents? Why not go get a job, work 9 to 5? You don't have to worry about everything. You just, you do, like, when you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, it doesn't end at 5 o'clock. You're always consumed with the business.
It's 24 hours, because we used to even do towing at night. You get a call in the middle of the night.
I'm in the business, and sometimes it's constant chaos. And it never ends. It's continuous. What was your motivation to continue that? Well, you saw that as a kid. Did you want to? Oh, I don't want to do this. I'd rather just have a regular.
It's kind of easy. What kid doesn't want to be around? I mean, it's going back up this is in the 50s now. Rock and roll starting. What kid doesn't want automobiles? And I had
exactly.
And my father gave me a long leash, like I could fix a car, fix it up to sell it. Mm-hmm. And all I had to do was pay him his cost. He wouldn't take a profit from me, and I could keep the profit. But he would say, "This profit, you're going to go to college. You're going to go this. You got to put some money away." Or I could buy a car on my own. I couldn't really be in compete, but I could. I had a long leash. But on the other hand, he was my father, and we'd get into fights, big fights. My father got up every morning 5 a.m. And my mother worked too, so we got up at 5 a.m. My mother would go to her job in another town, and my father would take my brother and I out for breakfast. We used to go to a local diner, get back for 6 o'clock, and whether it was school days or if it was in the summer, we do the work. But it was always that drive but there were times that I'd have fights with my father and I quit. When I got older, I quit. So I remember saying to my father one night, I says, "Dad, you're working me too hard. I'm only a kid." I was 13. And my father, this big guy, and he looks over to me and he says, and he called me Bear. He says, "Bear, I'm so sorry. You don't have to work for me." I says, "I don't?" "No." Okay. So the next morning, same thing, 5 a.m. He's shaking me to get up. And I says, "Dad, you said I didn't have to work for you." He says, "I said that." He says, "I did say it. Get up. We're going to have breakfast." The same thing up the road. Now, we live on this Route 20. This was after breakfast. Stand there on the road. 10 minutes goes by, this rack truck full of migrant workers. And I knew there were migrant workers because The owner.
So he made you go
The
work with
owner of the farm bought parts
Uh-huh.
from us for his trucks, and the tractors. Get on the truck. So I'm in the truck with most of the migrants back then were brought in just for the growing season. They were all from Puerto Rico. So I got on the truck, and we go to Campground Farms, and I picked radishes and beans for the rest of the summer. And I never, my father said, "You ready to come back?" "No, I like it there." I says, I like Mr. Capicchio's daughter. She's the supervisor. She's nice. She's pretty, Dad. And there was this kid, Nick Moriarty. His father was a sergeant in the police force, and his father figured he needed a little. So both of us were on.
So you had fun.
We made it. Would I rather been at my yard? Yeah. But you know something? I learned more about working with those migrants from Puerto Rico, what they went through, and how to pick a thing of radishes, a basket. They do it 10 times quicker, watching them. And, I had them as friends for a long, long time and customers later. But that was a big
That was a
turning
good
point.
experience. So your dad wanted you to save money and go to college, and
Oh, yeah,
wanted
there was
you
never,
to work hard.
Yeah, never
And
held me back that way.
you did go to college, though, right?
I went to the University of Miami, and I worked for 2 years after. I really didn't want to go to college because there was too much action with the cars. But I was, after high school, for 2 years, I was just working in the yard, and one of my best friends got a scholarship, a hockey scholarship to Colgate University.
Mm-hmm.
And they have party weekends in the middle of the terms or whatever. And he had a girlfriend, and he says, "Look, why don't you bring my girlfriend up, take your girlfriend up, and we'll have a great time." I says, "Okay." It was upstate New York, drove up, and but what I found myself completely inadequate now in this environment. Some of these kids went on to be surgeons, my age. And here I am, 2 years behind them now. They're my age, but where I've been working for 2 years. And I'm just feeling, wow, I can compete but I can't even compete in really conversation with these kids.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more. And I came back from that with a different thought.
Nice.
And I did have, there's always a break. And during World War II, 2 of my uncles trained in Florida before going to Europe. And one of them went on to be a chemist at the University of Miami. Mm-hmm. And the other flew for Eastern Airlines.
Oh.
So they never came back to Boston except to visit. They bought a home in actually Opelika, Florida, which is near Miami. And where one of my uncles was a professor, not a teaching professor, he was more of a scientist.
A
research chemist on air conditioning. That was his specialty.
Oh.
University of Miami, most air conditioning in this country comes from
Miami.
their patents.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was so
From
hot
your uncle.
here.
From
Yeah.
your uncle.
Oh, he was part of it, and big part. But that was it. I said, okay.
I'm going to college.
I'm gonna, and they just didn't let me in because my grades weren't, but my uncle had some pull, so they said, okay, go 1 full semester at night school. And night school was really 4 o'clock on. So I got and I had to get a C average.
That's a whole nother story too. Growing up in Miami,
Yeah,
I mean not
yeah.
growing up, but going to college in Miami, that must have been a lot of
And then I had
fun times too.
and I still had to work though. So one thing that I had at the time, I was the youngest. This is the youngest licensed cab driver
In
Miami Beach. In Miami Beach, to become a cab driver, you had to take a 100-question test. And some of the questions would be, you're in front of the Fontainebleau Hotel, your fear has a heart attack, which hospital and by what route? This was...
So you actually had to think. Nowadays, you don't have to think.
You don't have to speak English.
No, you just look on your phone.
Oh, like your
it tells-
GPS, take it to the hospital,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But Yeah, that's so I and I it took two turns. I was told by someone in the police. The police administered it. They said, "Look, kid, you're not going to pass this the first time. Take the test, memorize the questions, and what
The pattern.
the pattern of it is." And that's what I did. I failed it the first time, but I knew. Now the second time I went back and aced it. And I remember the chief, his name was Rocky Pomerantz. He was a very famous chief on Miami Beach. Came in and said, "Kid, you really did well." He didn't know his sergeant told me to
He
take
took
it
you
twice.
to
Yeah.
training.
But I was proud of that, and I did well. And another secret, when it was Yellow Cab in Miami Beach, in Miami, told me, if you want to make money, kid, be in front of the Eden Rock or the Fontainebleau at 5 a.m. And because a lot of people were coming out of the hotels at that time, and your cabs would fill up, and they were flush with money. They were the gamblers.
So-
they were whatever.
So up to college, you had experience working in the farms, working with your dad, being a taxi driver. That's like being an entrepreneur in itself. And then what degree did you get? What did you
Just
get?
a regular
A business?
history.
Oh,
I
history.
majored in history.
Oh, really?
Yeah, history. And
And then you got out, and then how did you get into business, or after you got out of college?
I got out of college.
What made you
And
go
I really had my last year of college. That summer, my dad had some financial problems, and he closed the business down for a while. He needed to work up some banking and like that. So I went to work. I knew everybody in that business. So down on Cape Cod, there was a Alvy's Auto Salvage, and John Albertassi, just a wonderful, wonderful guy. So he said, "Come to work for me." And so I came to work, and he was getting somebody. I mean, I grew up in it, and I would do I'd pull parts, I'd deliver, I would do all that. Instead of living in Marlboro, I lived in Jamaica Plain, where one of my grandparents, Morris Rosen, lived, and I'd stay with him. So I worked that year. But what it was, from there, I was able to, and it was a family member, said to me, "You got to go. You got to help your father." And I don't want it. You've got to do this. You've got to get him back. He's going to lose this and that. We'll give you the money. We'll give you a loan to get back. And that's what they did. They gave me the loan.
And so you went back to work with your dad.
I went back to work.
After you were working, after you stopped working with your dad, when you were a migrant, working with the migrant workers, did you go back to work with your dad over again?
Oh, yeah.
You did?
Oh, yeah. Look, I know I wasn't going anywhere picking. But that was more like just saying.
A good experience.
It was an experience that I didn't want to give in as a kid. I did get paid from them, and
But then after college, when
when I got out, yeah.
and then you went to work with your dad again. Did you work with your dad, or did he kind of retire?
When I got out of college, that's actually when he had that problem, and that's when I got the loan. So I went back in there, and it didn't. The friction between us didn't
end.
And I was just, I wasn't happy, and yet, so I ended up buying another yard in another city, and I was going back and forth, but I didn't want to give up, I still owed people for getting that other thing going, and I ended up, it was just one day I had an argument with my dad and said, "Look, good luck, I love you, but I'm going," and I went to Florida. I came to Florida, and I opened up a yard in Florida.
Oh, you did?
I did. That was in, I think, 75. And we did good. That's when I met my friend Norman that you knew. That's when we really got close. But then in I got a phone call. This was in '77 from my brother, and he says, "Dad died." I says, "What?" I mean, it was just like he was only 57. I mean,
Oh, wow.
I just,
So young.
but I was still on all those notes and everything from there. So I just, at that time, I told my wife, I says, "We're going back." I mean, the opportunity
So then you
was
went
there.
back up to New England?
To
and
Massachusetts. I went back to
and
Massachusetts.
took over. Did your college experience help you in any way in business, or do you think, or was it necessary, or you could have skipped college and just went right into business?
What college gave me was finishing. It finished. It took like a lot of the roughness. Not that I was a rough guy, but it it just gave me a whole different world. I didn't. Before I went to college, I'd look at it. I read something in the newspaper and think it was the truth. Everything you read in college. It teaches you to question everything. Not that it's wrong, but it teaches you both sides of the.
Do you think that's true today and nowadays? I don't know if
I still think. Well, I think not enough people do read. Or everything's polarized. You know, the Democrats, the Republicans, and you can't say. I mean, everybody loves. Most people love our country, and sometimes they just forget what the country is and how the country suffered. They forget about World War II. They forget about Vietnam. All the.
and then forget about questioning and
Then
just
forget about
questioning.
questioning what is. It's terrible. I think it's terrible what is going on. We have to really quit fighting one another. That's how you
And-
break up.
and be united as a country.
Yeah, that's
and
what kept us all through history.
Is
Whether
united.
it was wars, it was people. All right, I don't like you, you don't like me, but we're in the army together, right? And there's a mission, and we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to marry you, but we're on this. We work together.
We're a team.
It's a team, and we got to get Team America back on. Where
I agree with you.
And there's
I was born in Russia, and I came to America for the same reasons, because Russia was not the best place to live, and there's America was the best place to move to with freedom and opportunities, and I live here today, and I see it's true. I'm so grateful that I moved here when my parents, we all moved here, my family in 1980, and I'm very grateful. And I know your family moved here some time before, but we have the same roots.
same roots.
Yeah.
Same roots, and
Yeah.
strength and survival.
Yeah.
Survival.
And we only have a few minutes left, but what is the most important thing you would like to share for entrepreneurs or people that want to be in business? I know you have a lot of experience and knowledge, and what's your advice? The thing that you think is the most important thing to share that you'd like to share?
Well, if you have an idea, I mean, you research it, but you can't. I think most business owners aren't afraid to fail. There's just, you don't think about failure. You can get nervous, you're running low on money, but you find a way. That's what it is. You find a way. Find a way to, you just compare it to sport. You find a way to win. And you
It's
don't
like
win
sports,
it.
like
Yeah,
boxing.
you get knocked down. Boxers get knocked down, and then at the last minute they get up and they've knocked the other guy down, or maybe they just stay down, but the next day they have another fight and they win. And the thing is, you win more than you lose, but you want to be.
I think so. It sounds like you'll find out what you're made of, and just pushing yourself and seeing what you're capable of is the most exciting part of being an entrepreneur.
And taking care of the people that are helping you. When you own a business, you have people working for you. You got to make sure. That was one of the toughest things I had to learn. Is really, it's more than liking a person, but if understanding if they're not performing well or why. The easiest thing for a boss is to say, "Hey, you're fired."
Yeah.
And go on to the next guy.
Next guy.
And then it's the same thing. then you got to look inside you.
And you
What-
got to
what-
do it again, train them, and it
Yeah,
never ends.
yeah.
You're on like on a conveyor wheel, constantly hiring and firing people.
Yeah.
But what does it take to actually change that person, to get them to grow, to improve, and to find how to help them? Yeah,
Yeah, that's what you have to learn to do if you want to grow.
exactly.
Give them opportunities, and
It's almost like becoming a teacher.
you become a teacher, and sometimes you're the student. If
Takes
you
both.
listen, because any company that grows, you've got to realize you get an employee, somebody that's special, that's even smarter than you are, and has newer ideas.
Exactly.
Well, if you resent that, there's something wrong with you. Companies wouldn't grow.
You're not.
You know?
You're not going to grow,
Yeah.
and because there's a lot of people that have abilities that you don't have, and
Yeah,
if you
you need that.
Yeah.
I get that, and I've had employees that have gone way beyond whatever I've ever done. They started with me, then they went their own way, and I mean, just the way it happened, they've gone their own way, and I'm still friendly with them today, but very, very successful people,
Barry,
and I'm glad.
Barry, thank you for stopping in to
Dimitri.
Inspiration Station. It was a
Dimitri.
pleasure to talk to you and to do this interview, and looking forward to
It's a
do it
pleasure.
again in the future. Thank you for sharing with us. And again, you were with
Campground of America
and your property is where?
in Georgia, North Georgia, Hartwell, Georgia, Hartwell Lakeside, KOA.
Is there a phone number or an address, or how do you go there?
It's 330 Hart State Park Road in Hartwell, Georgia, 30643.
I want to go there.
Yeah, you've got a pass on me.
Thank you.